What if the place you called home was quietly trying to kill you? Every single day. Imagine waking not to silence, but to the slow rot beneath your feet, layers of straw soaked with waste decay and time itself. The air is thick, heavy, alive with smoke and unseen things. You breathe it in because you must. There is no escape, no clean space, no fresh beginning. Only survival repeated again and again. This is not an exception. This is normal life in 13th century England. And once you step inside, you may never feel clean again. The structure you call home is not a house in the modern sense. It is a single suffocating room barely large enough to contain a family, yet expected to hold an entire life. Built from timber mud and woven branches, its walls absorb moisture, smoke, and the slow decay of daily existence. The floor beneath you is not wood or stone, but compacted earth layered endlessly with straw, each new layer hiding what came before rather than removing it. And beneath that surface, something is always decomposing, rotting scraps of food, animal waste, bones, insects. The invisible accumulation of months, sometimes years. Visitors describe the smell as something closer to a graveyard than a home. Yet for most people, nearly 80% of the population, this was not unusual. It was expected. In the center of the room, a fire burns almost constantly, not for comfort, but for survival. Without a chimney, the smoke has nowhere to go. It rises slowly, filling every corner, clinging to walls, clothing lungs. Over time, everything becomes saturated: the wool on your back, the straw beneath you, even your hair. Modern comparisons suggest the air inside such a home was equivalent to constant exposure to thick, secondhand smoke. And yet this space was everything. Here, children were born. Meals were prepared. Illness spread quietly in the corners. And when the time came, many died here too, without ever leaving the same room they had entered life in. Morning does not begin with rest. It begins with discomfort. You wake pressed tightly against your family bodies, arranged by age and necessity, sharing warmth because there is no other choice. Beneath you, the straw mattress has not been replaced since the last harvest. It shifts slightly as you move, alive in ways you cannot see, but can immediately feel. The first thing you do is scratch. Everyone does. Fleas, lice, and bedbugs are not occasional intrusions. They are permanent residents. They live in your bedding, your clothes, your hair. Attempts to fight them exist: herbs scattered into straw, crude traps using bread and candlelight, but they offer little relief. The problem is not neglect. It is permanence, and here lies the deeper tragedy. Even the wealthy, the educated, the powerful bishops, monks, nobles suffered the same fate. Records describe clothing so infested it had to be cleaned before being given to the poor. Religious figures revered in life were found after death covered in parasites. Status offered no protection because no one understood the enemy. The dominant belief held that these creatures came from within, from imbalance in the body itself. Not from the straw, not from the environment. From you. And so the cycle continued unquestioned for centuries. You were not just living with the infestation. You believed you were creating it. The fire never truly goes out. Even through the night, it is kept alive beneath ash because relighting it would cost time, effort, and precious resources. By morning, it still burns quietly, relentlessly filling the room again with a slow, creeping smoke that has nowhere to escape. You live inside it. Every breath carries particles of ash and soot deep into your lungs. Over time, it settles into everything: the beams above the straw, below the clothes, against your skin. The smell becomes permanent, not something you notice, but something you are. And yet, despite this, you still try to be clean. This is the part history often misunderstands. Medieval people did not ignore hygiene. They valued it. Washing hands and face each morning was common across social classes. Soap made from animal fat and ash had existed for centuries. Teeth were cleaned with herbs, cloths, even primitive brushes. In cities, bathhouses operated regularly, some opening several days a week. But you do not live in a city. Your version of bathing is small, limited, improvised. A wooden basin, a jug of water, sometimes warmed over the same fire that fills your home with smoke. You pour it over yourself quickly, sparingly. There is never enough water, never enough fuel to heat more. And the water itself is never truly clean. Drawn from wells or rivers that sit dangerously close to cesspits, it carries the same contamination you are trying to wash away. So you clean your hands, your face, your body. But the environment remains unchanged. Cleanliness is not a state you achieve. It is a constant effort against a world that undoes it immediately. By the time you eat, your body is already working. Not resting, never resting, but preparing for labor that will consume the entire day. And what fuels that labor is simple, repetitive, and often insufficient. Bread and pottage. A thick stew made from whatever the land provides: cabbage, onions, peas, beans, sometimes enriched with bits of meat if fortune allows. Archaeological studies confirm this was the foundation of survival, not choice, but necessity. The bread beside it is dark, dense, made from barley or rye because wheat is too valuable for most to afford. And in harder years, even that changes. Grain is stretched with acorns, dried legumes. Anything that can fill the gap left by failed harvests. During famine, people consume the very seeds meant for planting, trading tomorrow's survival for today's hunger. Even cooking comes at a cost. You cannot bake freely. The Lord owns the oven, and you pay to use it. Every meal in some way reminds you of the system that controls not just your labor, but your ability to eat. And then there is the water, or rather, the danger of it. Rivers and wells are shared spaces, sources of life, and dumping grounds for waste. Animal remains, human refuse, runoff from cesspits all flow into the same water you depend on. Drinking it directly risks disease, something people understood not scientifically but through experience. So you drink ale instead, not for pleasure but for safety. The brewing process by boiling water reduces the threat enough to make it survivable. It becomes part of every meal, every working hour, even breakfast. This is not indulgence. It is adaptation. Because in a world where even water can betray you, survival depends not on what is available, but on what will not kill you first. By now, the dangers around you are obvious: the smoke, the waste, the water. But the greatest threat is the one you cannot see, cannot feel at first, and cannot escape. It lives inside you, quietly. Intestinal parasites were not rare. They were expected. Studies of medieval remains reveal that a significant portion of the population carried worms, sometimes for years. These were not microscopic. Some grew long enough to coil within the body, feeding silently as you worked, ate, and slept, and yet no one understood why. Medical belief insisted these creatures formed naturally within you, born from imbalance, from corrupted humors. The idea that they came from contaminated soil or waste did not exist. So the cycle continued: waste used to fertilize crops, crops consumed parasites, returned again. A perfect loop. Even monasteries, places thought cleaner and more disciplined, showed higher infection rates than ordinary towns. Their methods of cultivation unknowingly reinforced the problem. What appeared to be order was in reality deeper exposure. Beyond parasites, disease moved freely. Dysentery from water, tuberculosis from air, ergot poisoning from grain. And looming over everything waiting in the coming century, the plague carried by fleas that already lived among you. When it arrived, it would not introduce something new. It would simply amplify what was already there. Life expectancy tells the story brutally. Many never reached adulthood. Children died in staggering numbers. But those who survived the early years could live longer than expected, not because life was easy, but because they had already endured its most dangerous trials. Survival was not luck. It was passage through a constant, invisible gauntlet. As night returns, nothing truly ends. It only resets. The fire is covered, not extinguished, because starting it again would be harder than keeping it alive. Smoke lingers low in the room as darkness settles. One by one, your family lies down, returning to the same straw, the same air, the same unseen companions that waited through the day. Nearby, your animals shift in the dark. Their warmth helps you survive the cold, but it also fills the space with breath smell and presence. Human and animal life blur together under one roof, not by choice, but by necessity. This design, common across medieval England, was efficient. It was also inescapable. Outside, others continue working. In towns, laborers descend into cesspits, hauling away waste under cover of darkness. The system never stops. It cannot, because everything produced during the day must go somewhere, and eventually it returns. Inside you lie still. The air thickens. The smell settles. Somewhere beneath you, something moves. A flea finds skin again. The cycle resumes without announcement, without interruption, without end. And yet this is the truth often misunderstood. People did care about cleanliness. They washed when they could. They made soap. They used herbs, rinsed their mouths, heated water when fuel allowed. They tried constantly to push back against the world around them, but the world was stronger. Because everything water, soil, air, food was part of the same closed system of contamination. Without knowledge of bacteria, without sanitation infrastructure, without separation between waste and life, there was no true escape. Clean was not a condition. It was an idea. So if you had lived here, if you had breathed this air, slept on this floor, eaten this food, you would not have stopped caring. You simply would have never reached it. If this journey changed the way you see history, tell me what part shocked you the most. Comment below, share your thoughts, and let's explore more together. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to support the channel. Thank you for watching, and wherever you are, may your night be clean, safe, and far removed from this world.